right, it's Thursday, May 30th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And today on the daily chart, we end up with a two down red day that held below the midpoint of the prior day, closed lower. We broke out of a range that was identified here for the last couple of weeks. After yesterday's shooter looking bar, we anticipated lower and we gapped down a little bit. And by the end of the day, closed to the downside. In the bigger picture, now we officially have our two down week with one day to go in the week. And, we're still, until proven otherwise, projecting that we could head down to this low. If we don't get there tomorrow, it's possible we hold red and in compound fashion get kind of a broadening action, a higher to this green bar here, and an eventual lower low here. We have some gaps to fill in here. So now that we have the two down week confirmed after that neutral week last week, we will see, first of all, how things close tomorrow. If it stays strongly red, then you kind of anticipate a little bit lower, and we're going to have to wait for some kind of a weekly reversal to the upside to get comfortable to the buy side again. It's possible the one day to go in the week, maybe we get a big rally up here, and this doesn't become such a threatening looking red bar. We'll find that out tomorrow, but given the fact the after hours is kind of holding a little low, well, we'll see what happens in the morning. But anyway, if it's a two down week, which I kind of suspect will develop by the end of tomorrow, then you kind of anticipate lower into next week a little bit. And then at that point, we need to see a weekly reversal. On the monthly chart with one day to go in the month, it's definitely going to end up a green month. The question is, if we go a little bit lower, does this become kind of a significant enough selling tail where it might take a while to eventually break up above that high? You're still going to see a green month and probably anticipate higher, but kind of like last month where we had the red month here and we ended up with a buying tail, we were going to see how the open unfolded here, and we flipped this this recent month green pretty quickly and stayed green all month. So now that we have a selling tail, maybe we get the opening price, on starting in June, that stays red, and we can consolidate in this area for a while. So a big thing is going to be a reference point to where next month opens, and then if we're below it, we'll stay red as long as it wants to pull back. And then if we get kind of as anticipated some kind of a weekly reversal back up, then we can turn the month back up green, and then we can be biased to take out the high of the previous month. So we'll get into that as the next month opens up. But for now, it looks like a two down week that we're going to have to be patient and wait for some kind of a weekly reversal to the upside, and still know we have targets lower here, both to this area and into this gap. That maybe this whole move up, we pull back to the halfway point of it in some form before we turn up. So we just let price action lead the way. But today, clearly, we broke out below the range. We were kind of talking about that all along. How are we going to get out of this? And yesterday was kind of that second attempt to try to rally from the bottom of the range, and we couldn't do it. So it's not surprising we broke lower. In terms of intraday price action, obviously right out of the gates here with the pre-market range between the blue lines, we opened up lower but a little bit neutral here off the lows of the pre-market, then a pause bar, and then we head lower here on bar 3. So there is the opportunity to buy some puts if you really wanted to see if some momentum would go to the downside, breaking out of the range on the downside of the big picture. And price certainly moved to its first target, which was the pre-market low. So you had that going for 1, 2, 3 an hour or so. It did make 2 attempts to break below that low, and then had the big green bar. And I actually thinking maybe, we're at the bottom of a range, we took out our liquidity, we're not getting the momentum, maybe we would get a reversal to the upside in some form. So at that point, if you were, maybe the puts didn't, after the gap down, didn't give you much of a profit, but you shouldn't have gotten hurt here. You could have taken, scaled out at your target and then see what happens. Once this green bar happened, you kind of sense that, you had 2 opportunities, like I said, to get through liquidity, and then it popped up green. So that's why you're either exiting or, continuing to watch it. It obviously came out, and what did it do? It took out liquidity of the high of the day, still way below the midpoint of the prior day in terms of keeping your bias to the downside, and then we turned down again. So I'm not saying there was anything easy about trading this particular, other than, maybe a break-even kind of thing here early. You didn't really know if it would rally up strong. Once it took out this liquidity and started back down, um, again, I'm not surprised this happened. I'm not saying, the question is once you don't get momentum to the downside, but you're still in a downward environment, you kind of then look for liquidity to be taken out in order maybe to get short again. And that would be the only thinking. So it's not like there was any strong move above the first bar high to really consider getting long and thinking this would turn into a big reversal day. But, it just depends on how you look to trade the SPY. In terms of the rest of the market, I mean, I noticed right out of the gates when things were pausing here, I did notice Tesla was moving up pretty strong, and I bought that one instead. I was able to take a small gain on this I described on a video. And then knowing the whole environment was down, I mean, so many stocks moved lower out of the gates, like Meta, and I can go on and on, Coinbase. I mean, every stock was moving lower. Microsoft was moving down. So it was a negative environment. I chose CrowdStrike as my stock to trade by the puts here, kind of on bar two, and you can see that was a really nice move lower all day long. So you knew the bias was down overall. SPY wanted to kind of, give you a little bit of a counter move to take out liquidity before it went to the lows of the day. So sometimes the indexes don't always make it easy, whereas other stocks out there kind of lead the way. But anyway, like I said, red bar here, kind of anticipate. We still have the weekly target to last week's lows down here to reach with 1 day to go. Could easily do that. I guess if you get some kind of gap up above the midpoint of this bar and a reversal higher, maybe we're coming back into that range. If somehow that happens tomorrow, that's possible, but if not, then it's likely, we end up with the red bar that can, lead a little lower into next week. And at some point, we're going to have to see the weekly reversal up in order to get back to the buy side again, knowing that we're going to probably end up with a green month that should, at some point, if we hold the midpoint of this month, even if it starts lower, we should at some point turn up and test those highs, but we'll let price action lead the way. So that's the recap today. 2 down week, a little bit of a target to go to the downside, and we will just kind of see how things end on Friday.